I'm reacting to your pre-recorded Friday Night SmackDown Hot Takes. Hot Takes is a weekly video series where I give you all a platform to be able to voice your thoughts, whether those are good thoughts, bad thoughts, or everything in between about the world of professional wrestling. So if you'd like to be featured in the next episode of Hot Takes, make sure that you're following me over on X because I ask for your hot takes there after every episode of Raw, SmackDown, and every single WWE Premium Live event. Which means, yes, we will be doing one immediately after Survivor Series War Games. Speaking of which, I'm here in San Diego for Survivor Series War Games. So if you see me out and about in the city of San Diego, make sure you say hello. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I'm incredibly confident that you are going to fall in love with this YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. And if the daily wrestling content just simply isn't enough, consider going over to the Patreon, patreon.com/SantiZeb, where we upload the Raw reviews, SmackDown reviews, and all of the different videos that can never get uploaded here to the YouTube channel because they would just get blocked due to copyright because we use real footage over there. So go check it out. Link in the description, link in the pinned comment. That's enough. Let's see what you guys sent in. It's happening. Jey Uso versus Gunther again. Can we give the win to Gunther already and just move on? This tournament had potential and they just went so cookie cutter with it. Look, I don't disagree that the decision, which isn't certain, but it does kind of feel like it's gonna be, to go with Gunther isn't particularly exciting, and I agree. To a degree, it's very cookie cutter. But I did have hopes that at least along the way, Gunther would have the opportunity to win us over by having banger after banger after banger after banger match. And when I looked at the tournament schedule, it did look like it was laid out that way. However, with the injuries to Sheamus and Penta, Gunther's path to John Cena just seems significantly less sexy than it was last week. And when we look at the remaining opponents for a Gunther, Solo Sikoa, potential final with LA Knight, and now the most likely final against Jey Uso, it really does look like it's going to be a very disappointing finish for this tournament. I'm confident that nobody, not even like super big Jey Uso fans, want to see this match again. We have seen Jey Uso versus Gunther enough times to know that they just don't have that good a chemistry, at least not enough chemistry to have this many matches in a 12-month span. Not only matches, but multiple matches for different accolades. They've now had matches for the Intercontinental title, the World title, and now to see who is going to face off against John Cena. Again, I'm complaining when we don't yet know if we're actually going to get Gunther versus Jey Uso, but Jey Uso is just ripping through everybody. The way he just cleanly beat Rusev today tells me that in no world this man is losing to LA Knight. So yeah, the nightmare is very much on the table. A final between Jey Uso and Gunther, and an even bigger nightmare, unfortunately, is directly in front of us, which is Jey Uso potentially winning this whole tournament. But when it does come down, which again, I think it's most likely to come down to Jey Uso and Gunther, the entire world will become Gunther fans. Seeing the WWE champion feuding with the United States champion is weird because Julia is free and able-bodied. She lost the belt, so at least give her the feud with Jade before Bliss and Flair return to take the main event spotlight again. You know what? I agree. I think this is a really weird feud, if you can even call it a feud. I just think it's just Jade Cargill standing tall over Chelsea Green and just sort of squashing her. I don't really see a proper feud playing out here in the traditional sense. Now, I get it. Right now, the path is to just try and make Jade Cargill look as intimidating, as scary, as unstoppable as possible, and destroying the likes of Chelsea Green will never ultimately hurt a Chelsea Green in the long run, but also at the same time, it doesn't exactly inspire confidence in your champion if you're just beating the Chelsea Greens of the world. But if it was a feud with Julia, even a Julia that got rolled up for the United States Championship by that very same character, Chelsea Green, I think it would hit harder with fans if it was Julia instead of Chelsea Green. Because if Jade Cargill is out there beating badasses like Julia, again, even though she lost in a roll-up, I just feel like that is a better exclamation mark on Jade Cargill's young title reign and just would make her feel a lot more legit and a lot more dangerous. And like you said, Julia's there and available. They're not doing anything else with her, so you might as well put her in that position. They were already kind of teasing having Julia be in that women's world title picture with her little backstage altercations and feud that she had with Tiffany Stratton that they never ultimately pulled the trigger on. So it was there. Like, they could have made that natural transition, but again, they would just rather not use Julia Julia, which seems to be the case, unfortunately. This is definitely a coming out party for Solo. It was a great win in a brilliant way to officially kick off his feud with Bo Dallas. See, I'm not entirely sold on this being a great coming out party for Solo Sikoa. I feel like a better coming out party would have been if this had been on a PLE, had this been not spoiled by everybody on the internet with this being a pre-recorded episode of Friday Night SmackDown. This episode, for all intents and purposes, has been set up to fail and to be a forgettable one. And if that's the case, this isn't exactly the type of place where you want to have your coming out party. On top of that, I don't know that we necessarily need a Solo Sikoa coming out party. I think we need an entire MFT coming out party. And there was stuff to like from MFT in this match. However, Sami Zayn almost going 1v3 against them, I don't think is a particularly very good look for this faction that's supposed to be scary and unstoppable in the bullies of the mid-card. Don't get me wrong, Solo Sikoa winning and being the sole survivor is great. Him finally being able to pin Sami Zayn and getting that monkey off his back, where Sami Zayn just continuously pinned him over and over and over again until he eventually took his US title. I'm glad he was able to right those wrongs, but I still am not sold on Solo Sikoa or MFT. Actually, scratch that. It's not that I'm not sold on it. I'm not sold that WWE is sold on him. This should have been on the premium live event. A 4-match card for a stadium show feels so lazy. Look, I'm here in San Diego for Survivor Series War Games, and the vibe is very, very awesome. There is a lot of buzz, and you're generally going to get that when you're surrounded by your people, by wrestling fans. However, I would be remiss to not, at the very least, critique the fact that this is a stadium show with 4 matches. I'm very fortunate to be in a position that I'm here because of a sponsorship opportunity, so I didn't have to pay to be here, which again, I recognize that it's a really privileged situation to be in. But if I wasn't in this situation, I would have a hard time justifying flying out across the continent to San Diego for 4 matches. Had they added this on the card, I don't think that it would have necessarily made the card significantly better, but it would have felt like I'd be getting a bigger bang for my buck at the very least. And when you look at the ticket prices, good lord, ladies and gentlemen, go right now to any ticketing application that you want, Ticketmaster, SeatGeek, TickPick. The ticket prices, even one night out for Survivor Series War Games, are ridiculously expensive. What they are charging for 4 matches is egregious. I have a feeling that this is what's next for Rhea Ripley after Survivor Series. Her and Priest reuniting on TV, and with Rhea saying, quote, "Let me run an idea by you," I have a feeling that they're hinting at the Terror Twins versus Aleister Black and Zelina Vega, maybe at Saturday night's main event. I do think that that's where it's going to go. I had a lot of people a couple of months ago when Zelina Vega originally got linked up with Aleister Black on the main roster that, oh, this means the Wepa Queen's going to get called up, that Lola Vice is going to get called up to the main roster. And what I said is that although I like Lola Vice, I still think that she is green as grass and not ready to go to the main roster. Certainly not ready enough to be having feuds that involve the likes of Zelina, Aleister Black, and a former world champion in Damian Priest. I don't care that they're dating. I just don't simply believe that she's ready. And in the back of my mind, I always assumed it was going to be Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley to me seemed like the only one that made sense. Of course, she has that on-screen relationship with Damian Priest. She has a real-life friendship with Zelina Vega. So I think it is a little bit of a match made in heaven to eventually add Rhea Ripley into this. But it certainly does feel like they're kind of artificially keeping Rhea Ripley out of the world title picture if this is the case, you know, doing this whole Rio saga and then women's war games and then teaming up with Damian Priest to go up against Zelina and Aleister. It's like they're doing anything and everything in their power to save Rhea Ripley for the women's world title picture as we get closer to WrestleMania. Now you say Saturday night's main event. I hope not. I really hope that Saturday night's main event is John Cena's retirement match, and anything and everything else is just main roster versus NXT. That's all I want to see at that show personally. Look, I'm not saying that this match isn't big enough to be on a Saturday night's main event or a premium live event. I'm just simply saying that this shouldn't be on this show in particular because it just won't matter, because no storylines on that night will matter. The only thing that will matter on that night is John Cena's retirement match. All the other matches, if they have storylines, I just think they're going to go over everybody's head because people are just going to be hyper focused on John Cena. That's why I hope that all of the other matches, aside from Cena's matches, is just an exhibition match with no story. The show without the US Open Challenge is extremely dry, and I mean for a go-home show to a Survivor Series, that shouldn't even be the scenario. Look, this was a pre-recorded episode of Friday Night SmackDown, which means that to have a US Open title match would have meant to ask Ilya Dragunov to have 2 matches in one night, which I'm sure he's capable of doing. However, every single match that this guy has, he seems to go to war. It's like he seems to forget that wrestling isn't actually like UFC gladiator fighting, because he goes out there and damn near murders himself trying to sell for people. So, you know what? I'm personally glad that Ilya Dragunov did not go back to back on the same night, because that obviously increases the likelihood of injury, which of course, if he gets injured, means we get no US Open challenge moving forward from Ilya Dragunov. So I would rather take a one-night break on a pre-recorded episode of Friday Night SmackDown than to risk an injury and having him do too much on a singular night. But it does, to your credit, point out the gaps in the show, that when this aspect of the show is missing, it makes the show feel lackluster and dry, and I fully agree with that sentiment. Man, you have so much great talent that could be used to fill the mystery slot, and you give it to The Miz. I like Miz, but having someone different come in would have been so much better than having The Miz lose 2 different Cena tournament matches. You know what? I can't disagree with this statement. I love The Miz just as much as any other big Miz fan, but I don't think that this was the play. I do think it was an underwhelming, uninspiring decision to have The Miz be the mystery opponent and be entered into the tournament twice. First of all, it's just illogical to even have your name twice inside the lottery casket thingy. That just doesn't make any sense. Look, I like how they did it with The Miz snicking his name in there. That was clever. It made him look smart, but for what? Just to eat a second loss? Just to be the only guy to eat 2 losses in this tournament? This did nothing for The Miz. This did nothing for LA Knight. This certainly did nothing for the fans. I would have much preferred somebody that didn't get an opportunity in this tournament. I would have preferred like an Otis or a Tozawa even. Just somebody that didn't get an opportunity the first time around. You also had R-Truth right there, who's been sitting around on the main roster doing absolutely nothing. He wasn't part of this tournament. I think they could have easily added him and done a whole full circle storyline of his balls finally getting touched. Asuka losing like that felt crazy. Just a clean pin in a match that she barely got much real offense in. The heel War Games team doesn't feel threatening at all. I think the threat of the heel War Games team for the women's is literally just the presence of the man Becky Lynch. And I said this in previous videos that the only way that the heels are winning against this absolutely all-star stacked women's War Games team for the babyfaces is if Becky Lynch gets the pin on AJ Lee to further their story, because there's no other aspect of the heels team that is threatening at all. And you're right. I think that this match showcased that as well, which is a shame considering Asuka, to me, is somebody that can be a threat when written as a threat. And I thought they were writing her as a threat in the build up to this and how she became this like tyrannical leader of the Kabuki Warriors. But it looks like they're starting to wane down on that when there was a lot of potential to reintroduce Asuka into the main event scene. But this match unfortunately tells me that I just don't think WWE has those plans anywhere in the near future. Shinsuke was eliminated way too early. He should have been the sole survivor for his team, or at least bottom 2. I think I would have liked the final survivor for the babyfaces to be anybody but Sami Zayn. I have nothing against Sami Zayn, and I do think it created a weird tension to have Sami Zayn be the sole survivor for the babyfaces, because it created this like notion of, oh no, are they actually going to have Sami Zayn 1v3 MFT here and completely annihilate any chance that MFT has at actually getting over? But I feel like at the end of the day, it was just, and unfortunately, it seems to be a pretty common thing with WWE. We talked about it at the very beginning of this video. It was very cookie cutter. To go with Sami Zayn being the last guy in the babyfaces team, it was a very simplistic, obvious choice. Had they gone with, like you said, a Shinsuke, a Rey Fenix in the final spot for the babyfaces, I think it could have done wonders for whoever that babyface was, whether it's to ignite their career like a Rey Fenix, or maybe even revive it like a Shinsuke Nakamura. I truly cannot express how much tension there was in my forehead when I saw them go up 1-2-3 against Sami Zayn. I was having real X's flashbacks. And yeah, honestly, I don't blame you for having those thoughts because I was having those exact same feelings, especially because WWE has kind of shown their hand with Sami Zayn and how they view Sami Zayn compared to MFT or compared to Solo Sikoa. When you look back at that United States Championship feud where Sami Zayn went 3-0 versus Solo Sikoa and frankly had no business winning the United States Championship. Don't get me wrong, it led to some very awesome stuff with the US Open challenge, but I still think it was the wrong decision to have Solo Sikoa be basically eaten alive 3-0 by Sami Zayn. So when I saw Sami Zayn being the last one, it did create like a little bit of internal terror that they were about to do it again to Solo Sikoa. So I will say it was a pleasant surprise that they ultimately didn't and that Solo Sikoa was actually able to pick up the victory, but it wasn't without stress. Like I said, I was sweating throughout that. You would think that Rusev versus Gunther would have been the best final available, not WWE Creative, the 4 letters, 1 word, ye. I agree. I think that Rusev versus Gunther was the best available final with the injury to Sheamus, because it would have created at least a kind of unpredictable finish because it was 2 heels and it was a heel that is the favorite to win, Gunther, versus a heel that actually has background and history with John Cena that could have really benefited from getting his back against John Cena. I think it would have been the more unique, the more unpredictable final, albeit not that unpredictable because I still would have expected Gunther to win, but at least it would have been WWE attempting to hide who they ultimately wanted us to believe was going to win. The MFTs versus Wyatt Sicks payoff needs to be at WrestleMania 42. This is the first time that Solo will compete, and this is a completely solid storyline. I don't know that I'm ready to call this a solid storyline. We need to let it play out. All we've seen is Wyatt Sicks and MFT looking at each other. This is like the real first bullet fired to something that could lead to a storyline. We know that in the past that the Wyatt Sicks have haunted people that have turned their backs on family, and Solo Sikoa fits that bill perfectly with the storyline that he had taking over the bloodline, taking out Paul Heyman, etc. Will this have the legs to WrestleMania 42? I think that is a big question. I don't think so. I don't think that WWE is going to give Solo Sikoa and Bo Dallas and MFT and Wyatt Sicks a meaty 5-month-long storyline, because that's what you're asking for here. I don't know that they get 5 months out of this. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a Saturday night's main event match somewhere in January in Montreal, maybe a match at the Royal Rumble, maybe Elimination Chamber, but even that's really far away. Like, the Wyatt Sicks already rarely get enough TV time to actually develop and push storylines, so I just don't see them getting enough TV time to actually warrant building something to WrestleMania 42 this early on. Double champion Jade incoming, low-key wouldn't mind it. I actually wouldn't be surprised if this is where they're going. It's very clear that they have no path at all for the Women's United States Championship. It's clear that they don't even have a division for this damn title at all whatsoever. So putting this on the Women's WWE Champion would elevate the WWE Champion, which is something that they're trying to do with Jade Cargill, make her a very legitimate, intimidating, unstoppable force within the women's division, and putting multiple singles titles on her could do wonders at elevating Jade Cargill, even if that United States Championship kind of means nothing. But in the process, it's possible that by giving this belt to Jade Cargill, that she might elevate this championship. Maybe not to the way that like a Becky Lynch elevated the Intercontinental Championship, but certainly elevating it more than where it currently is, which is the absolute utter gutter ball of a basement. Honestly, I don't mind it. They have no other plans for the Women's United States Championship, so at the very least, this would be something to do. Folks, we'll leave it there. Thank you so very much for watching this episode of Hot Takes. Apologies if the audio isn't the greatest. We're working with what we got here while traveling, but that's it. Take care. Goodbye. Get out of here.